She told me, "You're the only father he'll ever need." But one DNA test shattered the lie. After years of paying child support, I took her to court, and the truth she thought would stay buried destroyed her instead. I'm 34 now, but this all started years ago when I was in my late 20s. Back then, life seemed steady, predictable, even good. I was married to Sophia, and like most people in long-term marriages, I thought we had built something lasting. When she told me she was pregnant, I didn't question a thing. Why would I? I trusted her. I was happy. I was nervous, of course, but I was proud too. The idea of becoming a father felt like the next chapter of our life together. When our child was born, I did what most men do. I stepped up. Sleepless nights, diapers, the overwhelming worry that I might mess something up, I embraced it all. Over time, even when our marriage started to lose its footing, I never thought twice about my role as a father. Eventually, Sophia and I divorced. It wasn't explosive, more like a slow unraveling. She said we had grown apart, and maybe she was right. But when it came to our child, I never hesitated. I agreed to child support without a fight. I thought, this is my kid, my responsibility. Even after the divorce strained my finances, even when I was scraping by, I told myself it was worth it. That money was going to the person who mattered most. Years passed like that. I paid faithfully, sometimes sacrificing things I needed just to make sure the payments went through. Friends called me a good man for not shirking my duty. I believed them. Deep down, I thought I was doing the right thing, no matter how hard it was. But then little cracks started forming in the picture I had built for myself. Family members, friends, even strangers at times, would make comments that lingered in my mind longer than they should have. They'd say things like, "He doesn't look much like you," or "Funny how he takes after Sophia's side completely." Most of the time, I brushed it off with a laugh, telling myself that genetics can be unpredictable. I didn't want to entertain those thoughts. I told myself love mattered more than resemblance. Still, doubts have a way of creeping in, even when you try to bury them. Late at night, lying awake, I would sometimes wonder if there was something I was refusing to see. I'd shut the thought down quickly, feeling guilty for even questioning it. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who second-guessed his own child. Things might have stayed that way, me living with quiet, unspoken doubts, if not for one argument that changed everything. Sophia and I were discussing custody schedules. It wasn't unusual for us to butt heads over logistics, but this time the tension boiled over. She said something in the heat of the moment, something she probably didn't mean to reveal. It wasn't a full confession, but it was enough to stop me in my tracks. Her words were sharp, careless, and they didn't match up with the certainty I had always clung to. It was like a thread being pulled loose on a sweater. Suddenly, everything I had worked so hard to keep together started to unravel in my mind. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words echoed again and again. For years, I had resisted the idea of a DNA test. I told myself it wasn't necessary, that love made biology irrelevant. But now, for the first time, I couldn't push the thought away. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. So, I made the decision I had been avoiding for years. Quietly, without telling anyone, I arranged for a private DNA test. My hands shook as I sealed the envelope and sent it off. I told myself I was being ridiculous, but my gut told me otherwise. And deep down, I think I already knew what was coming. The envelope came back sooner than I expected. I remember staring at it for what felt like hours, unable to bring myself to open it. That small piece of paper held the power to either silence my doubts forever or tear apart everything I thought I knew. When I finally opened it, my eyes locked onto the words that confirmed my worst fear. The probability of paternity is 0%. I can't describe the mix of emotions that hit me all at once. Shock, anger, sadness, but above all, betrayal. For years, I had been pouring everything I had, my money, my time, my love, into raising a child who wasn't mine. I had lived under the belief that this was my flesh and blood, and in a matter of seconds, that belief was gone. I sat there in silence, staring at the page until the letters blurred. My mind kept replaying moments, his first steps, birthdays, the times I had stayed up late helping with homework. All those memories now felt twisted, not because of the child, but because of the lie that had been wrapped around them. Eventually, I confronted Sophia. I couldn't hold it in. At first, she denied it. She looked me straight in the eye and said I was being paranoid, that the test must have been wrong. But when I pressed her harder, the cracks showed. Finally, she broke down and admitted there had always been a chance the child wasn't mine. She said she hadn't wanted to risk losing the security of our marriage. Hearing those words stung more than anything else. Security. That's what I was to her. Not a partner, not someone she loved enough to be honest with, but a form of stability she didn't want to lose. I walked out that night feeling like the ground beneath me had shifted. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. This wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. This was deliberate. She had known there was doubt, and she had chosen to keep it from me. She had let me build my life around a lie, and even after our marriage ended, she continued to let me pay, month after month, draining myself financially under the illusion of fatherhood. That's when I decided I couldn't just let it go. I wasn't going to keep bleeding money for something built on deception. I contacted a lawyer, explained the situation, and handed over the DNA test results. That was the first time I heard the phrase extrinsic fraud, a legal term for deliberate deception that denies someone the right to make an informed choice. My lawyer believed that's exactly what Sophia had done to me. We began preparing a case to terminate my child support obligations and to seek repayment of the years of support I had already given. It wasn't just about the money. For me, it was about standing up for myself after years of being manipulated. Sophia didn't take it well when she was served with the papers. She came to me in tears, saying I was cruel for trying to abandon the child. She insisted that I had already accepted the role of father, and biology didn't change that. But her words fell flat. Acceptance was one thing, deception was another. I hadn't been given a choice in the matter. She had stolen that from me. As the legal process moved forward, things got ugly. Sophia tried to spin the story, painting me as a heartless man trying to walk away from a child. But my lawyer reminded me that the DNA evidence was undeniable. What mattered was the truth, and the truth was that I had been deceived, for years, by someone I once trusted most. I knew the road ahead would be exhausting, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was fighting for something that mattered, not just money, but the right to reclaim my life from a lie. The courtroom was nothing like I had imagined. It wasn't filled with high drama like you see in movies. It was quieter, slower, but every word carried weight. My case wasn't just about paperwork or money. It was about exposing the truth of what had been done to me. Sophia walked in looking composed, almost defiant. I could tell she was ready to fight. Her argument was simple. Biology didn't matter because I had already accepted the role of father. She claimed I had bonded with the child, and that walking away now would cause harm. It was a powerful angle, one that tugged at emotions. But my lawyer stayed focused. He laid out the facts piece by piece, the DNA test, the timeline, and most importantly, Sophia's admission that she had known there was a chance the child wasn't mine. He explained to the judge that this wasn't about me changing my mind. This was about extrinsic fraud. Sophia had withheld critical information that robbed me of the ability to make an informed choice from the start. When my lawyer spoke those words, I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief, because someone was finally saying out loud what I had been carrying alone. Anger, because it reminded me of how thoroughly I had been deceived. Sophia's lawyer tried to spin it differently. They argued that I had been a father in every way that mattered, and that I couldn't simply erase years of commitment. They brought up birthdays, school events, family photos, painting me as someone trying to run away from responsibility. I wanted to shout in that moment, to tell the judge that I hadn't chosen any of this, that my commitment had been built on a lie. But I kept quiet, letting my lawyer speak for me. He reminded the court that commitment made under deception isn't true commitment at all. It's coercion, dressed up as love and responsibility. The hearings stretched on for weeks. Each session drained me. Sitting across from Sophia, watching her avoid my eyes, was one of the hardest parts. She didn't show remorse, not really. At times, she seemed more concerned about her reputation and finances than about the enormity of the lie she had lived. Finally, the day came for the judge's decision. The room was still, everyone waiting for the words that would decide my future. The judge acknowledged the complexity of the situation but made it clear. The DNA evidence could not be ignored, and neither could Sophia's concealment of the truth. He ruled that my child support obligations were terminated effective immediately. On top of that, I was granted the right to pursue repayment for the years of support I had paid under false pretenses. Hearing those words, I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. For years, I had believed I was doing right by my child. And in a way, I had been. But the foundation of that belief had been rotten from the start. As the gavel struck, I caught a glimpse of Sophia. For the first time, she looked small, her confidence stripped away. She didn't speak to me, didn't even glance in my direction as we left the courtroom. Walking out, I wasn't thinking about money. I was thinking about the years I couldn't get back, the trust that had been broken beyond repair. I had won in the eyes of the law, but inside, I felt like someone who had just discovered the life he lived was never really his. After the ruling, life didn't return to normal. It couldn't. The courtroom had given me back my financial freedom, but there's no judge who can restore the years I lost or erase the betrayal that shaped them. For Sophia, the fallout was swift. Word spread quickly. Friends, neighbors, even her own family learned the truth. She tried to downplay it at first, saying the court had been unfair or that I was being cruel. But people weren't buying it. The DNA test was undeniable, and so was her admission that she had known there was doubt. One by one, people began to distance themselves from her. Friends stopped inviting her to gatherings. Family members who had once supported her turned cold. The woman who had spent years guarding her image of stability and security now found herself isolated. She reached out to me a few times in the months after the ruling. The first time, she called late at night. Her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. She admitted she regretted everything, not just the lie, but the way she had handled it once it came out. She said she hadn't expected it all to fall apart so completely. But regret doesn't undo choices. It doesn't give back trust or erase the years of manipulation. I listened, but I didn't offer her comfort. She had made her decisions, and now she had to live with the consequences. For me, the hardest part wasn't walking away from Sophia. It was coming to terms with my role in a child's life. Legally, I was no longer bound. But emotionally, things weren't so clean. I had been there for birthdays, for scraped knees, for first days of school. Those memories didn't vanish just because of a piece of paper. I decided not to pursue repayment aggressively, even though the court allowed it. Part of me wanted to, but another part of me couldn't bring myself to chase after money that had already been spent on a child who, though not mine by blood, had once called me dad. In the end, I saw that money as tuition for a very painful lesson. What cut the deepest wasn't the financial loss. It was the emotional manipulation. I had built my life around a lie, trusted someone who weaponized that trust, and sacrificed years of stability for an illusion. That realization stayed with me long after the legal battle was over. Looking back now, I realized this fight was never just about money. It was about dignity. It was about reclaiming my right to live in truth after being denied it for so long. It was about standing up, not just for myself, but for the principle that deception shouldn't go unchallenged. Sophia eventually moved away. The community that once surrounded her with respect no longer saw her the same way. She left quietly, and to my knowledge, she hasn't come back. Her choices had finally caught up with her, in ways she never expected. As for me, I'm still healing. Trust doesn't come easy anymore, and maybe that's the price I'll carry. But I've learned something important. When doubts linger, when something doesn't add up, ignoring it doesn't make it go away. Sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to demand the truth, no matter how painful it might be. So, here I am, sharing this story, not for sympathy, but as a warning. Trust is one of the most powerful gifts you can give someone, but it can also be used against you in ways you never imagined. I appreciate you watching till the end. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more content.